this thing down. Here's the thing. I need to chat to you. Fair enough about the last video where I ate. I apologize. Take me as having learnt my lesson there. I will only drink on screen. If anything, I will not be eating because it does make it hard to listen to what I'm saying. So let me repeat what I did in the last video and just sort of summarize it a little quicker. When you're working with something like Claude Code, you have specific context windows of about 200,000 tokens. If you have the extended token beta, there's a Sonnet model with a 1 million token context window. Really fucking fun to work with. Really fun. But also burns through your entire usage limit a lot faster because you're doing a whole lot more back and forth. But essentially what you want to do within that context window is you want to keep it very, very focused, and you want to run through maybe 2 or 3 planning cycles. And by planning cycles, I mean you use up more or less the entire context window 2 or 3 times at a bare minimum to iron out and squish out any ambiguity that there exists in your plan for the thing that you want to refactor, fix, build, whatever. You can use something like Ref. Ref helps it build really effective context on up-to-date documentation so that it doesn't just assume things, it actually knows them. And then you do that through those planning cycles, and what you end up with is a really nice plan. I do that alongside, I use the planning superpowers from Obra, that's O-B-R-A, superpowers. It's a Git repository that gives you some Claude skills. I use the planning functions in that and the implementation planning within that, with Ref providing me the relevant context and me sort of nudging it one direction or another, questioning certain assumptions as I read through the plans. But what it allows me to get at the end of it is like a 80–90% success rate on one-shots with just minor things in between or some details missing because I myself maybe wasn't aware of that particular implementation detail either. And at that point, it's not even down to the model, it's down to me, right? At that point, it's my lack of experience in that particular area. And then it becomes a learning opportunity, which is not bad either. But you're in the driver's seat, right? I had this sort of realization that this is a nice analogy while I was driving, and that even if you're in an autonomous car and you are in the driver's seat, if something happens in that vehicle, you are responsible as the driver because you should be paying attention. We're not nearly at the point where we have autonomous vehicles that can do all of that ourselves, but I believe even at that point, it should be the final control should be with the driver. Right, the final responsibility should be with the driver, because even if they go, oh, I'm handing over responsibility to the car, they're the ones handing over that responsibility. They're the ones making that choice. The same thing applies to your LLM work and when you're coding with AI. You are responsible for that. Whatever it produces, you are responsible for that. You can't go pointing at the LLM or you can't do any of that because you think it did a bad job. If it does a bad job, that's on you. You're the one driving it. So if you have this experience where the LLMs are dumb, or they're not giving you the results that you want, or you're getting frustrated with them, slow yourself down. Don't expect them to be that fast. Treat them more like a competent junior, in a way. A competent junior to like a starting mid-level. In the way that you have to collaborate them, you have to be very, very specific with what you want them to do. And even then, you have to sort of hold their hand a little bit as you go, in order to make sure that they. Oh, excuse me, I'm burping a little bit here. In order to make sure that they stay on track and stay on task. They still require supervision. You are still in the driver's seat. But you can parallelize it a hell of a lot better, right? Like I'm in Tmux and I run about 6 to 8 Claude Code sessions in a row in various Git work trees on different features all at the same time. What it gets me is essentially the same level of output as a full front-end team, right? And because I spend so much time in the planning phases, at the end of it, it's more a matter of taste and architectural choices and broad brushstrokes, and then going through and manually debugging the minor things that it might miss, because LLMs aren't particularly good at details yet. At least the coding models aren't really good at details yet. I hope they get better. But that's still where the human touch comes in, right? The human touch gives things their final polish. You can do a lot with LLMs, but you cannot rely on them to give you that finishing touch. That's a human thing, because it comes down to actually experiencing and working with what you've built to get a feel for it. And as much as you can explain feel to an LLM and potentially get a decent result, you know what a feeling feels like. An LLM can only conceptualize it based on probabilities, and even then it is just a fancy matrix. and it's not really able to understand what it feels like to use something. You are in the driver's seat. Yeah, so to summarize, use context windows effectively to build focused plans for pieces of work. And then when you execute those plans, keep those context windows to just what you're doing. Don't, if you notice something else is happening or you notice some other bug, don't get distracted, be disciplined. Put that into a separate context window, parallelize it, open a second instance of Claude Code, get a different Git work tree, start working on that problem there. Soon you can start doing that with lots and lots of different problems. You can get up to, like, as I say, I get up to 8. And then really hammer in on ensuring there's no ambiguity or inconsistencies in the plan. If there's anything in the plan you don't want in there, make it remove it before you start. Otherwise, it will still get confused. You need to be very precise and disciplined with the context you feed it. And you have to be in coding tools. If you're watching this and you're like, oh, but you know, I talk to ChatGPT and I can't get to do these things. That's because ChatGPT on the web and Claude on the web and all of these bot chats, these LLMs on the web don't work the same way. Right? They don't work with the same sort of concept of context windows that Claude Code does. But if you're in something like Claude Code, be precise and diligent and disciplined in working with these context windows to build robust plans that are flexible somewhat in execution, but precise in the details and the why of what you're doing. And that I reckon will probably give you the best success rate. Thanks.